Hey everybody! Welcome to the show! Or, well, welcome to the channel. It's me, 01A, and get this. Did you know that Post-it notes, those little yellow squares of genius that are probably stuck all over your monitor right now, were a total accident? Yeah. Some guy was trying to make a super strong glue, failed spectacularly, and ended up with a low-tack adhesive. For years, nobody knew what to do with it. Can you imagine? Hey Bob, I invented this glue that barely sticks. Great job, Steve, promotion for you. Not quite. But that's what we're talking about today, folks. The happy accidents, the oops moments, the wait, what just happened? Discoveries that stumbled their way into changing our lives forever. We're diving deep into the stories of things that weren't supposed to happen, but thank goodness they did. From life-saving medicines to everyday conveniences, it's amazing how many world-altering inventions started with a mistake, a surprise, or just plain old dumb luck. It makes you wonder what else is out there, waiting to be accidentally discovered, right? So grab your popcorn, maybe a post-it note to jot down your favorite. See, they're useful, because we're about to explore some of the most incredible whoopsie-daisy inventions in history. You'll be amazed, you'll laugh, and you might even look at that moldy bread in your fridge a little differently. Okay, maybe not differently, throw that out. But seriously, let's get into it. This is gonna be fun. Alright, first up, let's talk about a real game changer, something that literally saved millions, maybe even billions of lives. I'm talking about penicillin, and the story behind it? Classic accidental discovery. Our hero is Dr. Alexander Fleming, a Scottish bacteriologist. Now, Fleming, back in 1928, wasn't exactly known for being the tidiest guy in the lab. Picture it, petri dishes stacked up, experiments everywhere, probably a few forgotten sandwiches, knowing scientists. He was studying Staphylococcus, nasty bacteria that cause all sorts of problems. So Dr. Fleming, he goes on vacation. A well-deserved break, right? Leaves the lab, maybe forgets to close a window, who knows? When he gets back, he starts sifting through his old experiments, probably muttering about how he needs a lab assistant who actually cleans up. He picks up one particular petri dish that had been contaminated with a bluish-green mold. Most people would just toss it, right? Ugh, mold, gross. And into the bin it goes. But Fleming, he noticed something incredible. Around this mold, the bacteria were gone. Vanished. Kaput. It was like the mold had drawn a little do not cross line, and the bacteria respected it. He realized this mold, a strain of Penicillium notatum, was releasing something that was killing the bacteria. He called it mold juice at first. Catchy, right? Not really. Later, thankfully, he settled on penicillin. Can you imagine the light bulb moment? This stuff, it kills the bad guys. Now, discovering it was one thing, but turning it into a usable drug was a whole other saga. Fleming published his findings, but it didn't make huge waves immediately. It was like, hey guys, found this cool mold. And the world was like, neat, what's for lunch? It took another decade and the work of other brilliant scientists like Howard Florey and Ernst Chain at Oxford to figure out how to purify and mass-produce penicillin. They were driven by the desperate need for new treatments during World War II. Think about it. Before penicillin, a simple scratch could be a death sentence if it got infected. Pneumonia, scarlet fever, diphtheria, all terrifying. Penicillin changed all of that. It was like a miracle drug. Soldiers who would have died from infected wounds were suddenly surviving. It truly revolutionized medicine, ushering in the age of antibiotics, all because one scientist was a little messy and very observant. It's a fantastic reminder that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from the most unexpected places, or in this case, from a forgotten moldy petri dish. Fleming himself said, "I did not invent penicillin, nature did, I only discovered it by accident." Humble guy, right? But what an accident. It makes you think, what other mold juice moments are we missing just because we're too quick to clean up or dismiss something unusual? The impact is just staggering. Every time you take an antibiotic for an infection, you have Alexander Fleming's less than spotless lab and his keen eye to thank. It wasn't just a discovery, it was a revolution that reshaped human health and our ability to fight disease. So, next time you see a little mold, maybe, just maybe, give it a second look. Okay, probably still throw it out if it's on your food, don't sue me. This story just blows my mind every time. A vacation, a contaminated dish, and boom, one of the single most important medical discoveries ever. It really shows you that you have to be open to the unexpected, because sometimes the mistakes are where the magic, or in this case, the medicine, truly happens. What a way to kick things off. Okay, from saving lives to, well, saving your place in a book. But hey, don't underestimate the power of the Post-it note. This is another fantastic story of an accidental invention that, I guarantee you've used at least once this week. Probably once today. The story starts with a guy named Dr. Spencer Silver, a scientist at 3M back in 1968. He was on a mission, a very specific mission, to create a super strong, super sticky adhesive. Like glue that could hold a car together, that kind of thing. So, Dr. Silver is in his lab, mixing chemicals, doing his science thing, and he comes up with, well, the opposite of what he wanted. He created an adhesive that was, to put it mildly, pretty wimpy. It was sticky, sure, but not permanently. You could stick something down and then peel it right off without leaving any residue, and you could do it over and over again. He called it a solution waiting for a problem to solve. Most companies would call it a failure. Silver, you had one job: make strong glue. For years, this low-tack, repositionable adhesive just sat on the shelf, metaphorically speaking. Dr. Silver would champion it within 3M, showing it to colleagues like, "Hey, check out this glue that doesn't really glue." People were polite, I'm sure, but nobody really saw a use for it. It was an invention without an application. Can you imagine his frustration? He knew he had something unique, but what it for? It's like inventing the internet and only using it to look at cat pictures. Oh wait, fast forward a few years to 1974. Enter Art Fry, another scientist at 3M. Now Art Fry sang in his church choir, and he had a very relatable problem. The little paper bookmarks he used to mark the hymns in his hymnal kept falling out. Annoying, right? You're about to belt out a glorious hallelujah and poof, your bookmark is on the floor and you've lost your page. The horror. He needed a bookmark that would stay put but wouldn't damage the delicate pages of his hymnal. Then, ding, light bulb, Art Fry remembered hearing about Spencer Silver's useless adhesive. He thought, wait a minute, what if I coated paper with that not-so-sticky glue? He tried it out, and voila, the perfect bookmark. It stayed in place, you could peel it off easily, and you could re-stick it somewhere else. The press and peel notes, as they were first conceptualized, were born from a choir singer's frustration and a failed experiment. Getting 3M on board wasn't instant though. Initially, the management was skeptical. Sticky paper? Who needs that? But Fry and Silver were persistent. They started distributing the notes internally at 3M, and soon, people couldn't live without them. They were using them for messages, reminders, annotations, all sorts of things. The demand grew organically because they were just so darn useful. It proved that sometimes, you need to get a product into people's hands before they realize they need it. The iconic canary yellow color, that was an accident too. The lab next door to the Post-it team had scrap yellow paper, so that's what they used for early samples. It just stuck. Pun totally intended. By the time they officially launched in 1980 under the name Post-it Notes, they were already on their way to becoming an office and household staple worldwide. Think about how many ideas, reminders, and passive-aggressive roommate notes have been communicated via Post-it. It's just amazing. A glue that was considered a dud, a problem with falling bookmarks, and a conveniently located pile of yellow scrap paper all came together to create one of the most recognizable and useful office products ever. It's a testament to not giving up on an idea, even if its purpose isn't immediately obvious, and to the power of collaboration and looking for solutions in unexpected places. So next time you peel off a Post-it, give a little nod to Spencer and Art. Alright, let's heat things up a bit with our next accidental discovery, the microwave oven. This one involves World War II technology, a sweet tooth, and a rather observant engineer named Percy Spencer. Spencer worked for Raytheon, a company that was heavily involved in developing radar technology during the war. Radar, as you might know, uses magnetrons, high-powered vacuum tubes that generate microwaves. Super important stuff for detecting enemy planes. So picture this, it's 1945. Percy Spencer is in the lab working with an active radar set, testing out a new magnetron. He's just doing his job, probably thinking about radar waves and technical specifications. And he happens to have a candy bar in his pocket. Some stories say it was a peanut cluster bar, others just say chocolate. The important part is it was there. And as he stood near the magnetron, he noticed something peculiar. His candy bar had melted, not just softened from body heat, but properly melted, gooey, and probably making a mess in his pocket. Now most people might just be annoyed about the ruined candy and the dry cleaning bill. But Percy Spencer was a curious guy, a self-taught engineer with over 120 patents to his name. He didn't just dismiss it, he thought, that's weird. What could have done that? His mind immediately went to the magnetrons. Could these microwave thingies be responsible? So, like any good scientist or just a really curious dude, he decided to experiment. The next thing he tried, popcorn kernels. He put them near the magnetron tube, and bam! Popcorn started flying all over the lab. Can you imagine the scene? Scientists ducking for cover from exploding popcorn? It must have been hilarious. After the popcorn fiesta, he tried an egg. Now, this one might have been a bit much. He placed a raw egg near the magnetron and one of his colleagues, curious, leaned in for a closer look. And then, kaboom! The egg exploded, splattering hot egg all over the poor guy's face. Okay, maybe not so funny for that guy, but it definitely proved Percy's theory. Microwaves could cook food, and fast. Raytheon, seeing the potential, quickly patented the idea. The first commercial microwave oven, called the Radarange, was unveiled in 1947. But don't picture the sleek countertop model you have in your kitchen. This thing was a beast. It was nearly 6 feet tall, weighed over 750 pounds, and cost about $5,000. That's like $60,000 today. So, yeah, not exactly flying off the shelves for home use. Initially, they were used in restaurants, railway cars, and ocean liners. It took a couple of decades for the technology to shrink in size and price, eventually leading to the countertop microwave ovens we know and love, or sometimes curse when we overheat our leftovers. But think about how much it changed the way we eat and prepare food. Frozen dinners, reheating coffee in seconds, microwave popcorn, thanks for the inspiration, Percy. It's all thanks to a guy working on wartime radar who happened to have a sweet treat in his pocket. It's another classic example of an unexpected observation leading to a world-changing invention. Percy Spencer wasn't trying to revolutionize the kitchen, he was trying to help win a war. But his curiosity about a melted candy bar opened up a whole new culinary world. So, the next time you nuke your lunch, remember Percy and his exploding egg? It's a delicious piece of accidental history. Alright folks, our next story is it's about a little blue pill that made a very big impact. We're talking about Viagra. And yes, you guessed it, its famous effects were a total surprise, an accidental discovery that took a medical trial in a completely unexpected direction. This is a good one, so buckle up, or, The story begins in the early 1990s. Researchers at Pfizer, the pharmaceutical giant, were hard at work trying to develop a new drug. The drug, then known by its clinical name sildenafil, or UK92, 480, catchy, was intended to treat hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and angina, which is chest pain caused by reduced blood flow to the heart. The theory was that sildenafil would dilate blood vessels, improving blood flow and easing these conditions. So they started clinical trials, giving the drug to volunteers, mostly men, to see if it would help with their heart conditions. The researchers were carefully monitoring blood pressure, heart rates, all the usual stuff, but as the trials progressed, something unexpected started happening. The drug wasn't really doing a great job for angina. The results were pretty disappointing on that front. It was looking like another dead end, another promising compound that just didn't pan out. But then, the male participants in the study started reporting a rather peculiar side effect, a consistent and for many, a welcome side effect. They were experiencing, shall we say, improved erectile function, significantly improved. Nurses and doctors conducting the trials started noticing that when they'd go to check on the male patients, many were often found lying on their stomachs. It became a bit of a running joke, but also a serious point of data. Instead of focusing on the heart, researchers started focusing on other regions. The reports were too consistent to ignore. It was clear that sildenafil was indeed dilating blood vessels, just not primarily the ones they were targeting for angina. It was having a much more pronounced effect on blood flow to the penis. This was a classic oops, wrong target, but hey, look at this, moment in pharmaceutical research. Pfizer, being a smart company, quickly pivoted. They realized they might have stumbled upon the first effective oral treatment for erectile dysfunction. A condition that affected millions of men, but was often not discussed or effectively treated. The focus of the research shifted dramatically. New trials were designed specifically to test sildenafil's efficacy for ED, and the results? Well, they were pretty stiff competition for other drugs. They were robust. The drug was eventually approved by the FDA in 1998 and marketed under the name Viagra. It became a cultural phenomenon almost overnight. It wasn't just a medical breakthrough, it changed conversations about sexual health and aging. It brought a previously taboo subject out into the open. And it all started because scientists were trying to fix hearts and accidentally found a way to, shall we say, gladden them in a different manner. It's a fascinating example of serendipity in science. The initial goal wasn't met, but an entirely new and incredibly lucrative avenue opened up purely by chance and by paying attention to unexpected patient feedback. It underscores the importance of observing all outcomes in research, not just the ones you're looking for, because sometimes the side effects are the main event. What a story, right? Truly a game changer born from an accident. Get ready for a discovery that truly lets us see things in a new light, or rather with new rays. We're talking about X-rays, folks, and their discovery by Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen in 1895 was a pure "what in the world is that?" moment. This one didn't just change medicine, it fundamentally changed our understanding of physics and opened up a whole new invisible world. Röntgen was a German physics professor, and like many scientists of his time, he was fascinated by cathode rays. These are streams of electrons in a vacuum tube. He was experimenting in his darkened laboratory, trying to see if cathode rays could pass through glass. He had his cathode ray tube covered in black cardboard to block any visible light. As he was working, he noticed a faint, greenish glow coming from a nearby bench. He looked over, and there was a small screen coated with barium platinocyanide shimmering. This was super weird because the cathode ray tube was completely covered. No light should have been escaping. He turned the tube off, the glow stopped. He turned it on, the glow reappeared. He was baffled but intrigued. Röntgen started moving the screen further away. The glow was still there. He realized that some kind of invisible rays were passing right through the black cardboard and making the screen fluoresce. He was like, what is this sorcery? He tried putting other objects between the tube and the screen, a book, a piece of wood, thicker blocks of metal. The rays passed through some things but were blocked by others, especially denser materials. Then came the truly iconic moment. He convinced his wife, Anna Bertha, to place her hand in the path of these mysterious rays, with a photographic plate behind it. When he developed the plate, they saw an image of the bones in her hand, with her wedding ring appearing as a dark shadow. Can you imagine her reaction? You want me to put my hand where? And it shows my bones? It was the world's first X-ray image. She reportedly exclaimed, "I have seen my death." A bit dramatic, but hey, it was groundbreaking. Because he didn't know what these rays were, he called them X-rays, with X being the mathematical symbol for an unknown quantity. The name stuck. News of his discovery spread like wildfire around the world. Within weeks, doctors were using X-rays to locate broken bones and foreign objects like bullets in patients without having to do surgery. It was an absolute game changer for medical diagnostics and surgery. No more guessing. The discovery of X-rays earned Röntgen the first Nobel Prize in physics. But he was a true scientist at heart. He never patented his discovery, believing it should be freely available for humanity. What a guy. His accidental observation in a dark lab, that faint glow, literally illuminated the inside of the human body and paved the way for countless medical advancements. From CT scans to radiation therapy. It's just incredible to think that one evening of experiments driven by curiosity led to something so profoundly impactful. He wasn't looking for invisible rays that could see through flesh, he was just investigating cathode rays. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest discoveries are lurking just outside our direct line of sight, waiting for a keen eye and an open mind to notice them. The unseen became seen, all thanks to a bit of accidental glowing. Our next story is a real pain saver. Get it? Pain? Glass? Okay, I'll stop. We're talking about safety glass, and its invention is a classic tale of a clumsy moment leading to a brilliant idea. The hero of this story is a French chemist named Edouard Benedictus, and the year is 1903. Picture him in his lab, probably surrounded by beakers and flasks like any good early 20th century scientist. One day, Edouard, perhaps a little distracted or maybe just having an off day, accidentally knocked a glass flask off a high shelf. You know that slow-motion feeling when something valuable is falling and you just can't get there in time? That was probably him. He winced, expecting the usual shattering explosion of glass shards all over his lab floor, a cleanup nightmare. But when the flask hit the ground, something strange happened. It cracked. Sure, it definitely spiderwebbed with cracks all over. But it didn't shatter into a million dangerous pieces. Instead, it mostly kept its shape. Benedictus was, of course, surprised and very curious. He picked it up and examined it. Why didn't it break like normal glass? What was different about particular flask? Upon closer inspection, he realized that this flask had, at some point, contained a solution of cellulose nitrate, a type of liquid plastic. The liquid had evaporated over time, leaving a thin, invisible film coating the inside of the flask. It was this plastic film that held the broken pieces of glass together, preventing them from scattering. It was like the glass had its own invisible safety net. Now, many people might have just said, huh, neat, swept up the mostly intact flask and forgotten about it. But Benedictus's mind started working. A few weeks later, he read a newspaper article about a recent spate of car accidents. Back then, car windshields were made of ordinary glass, and in a crash, this glass would shatter into deadly razor-sharp daggers, causing horrific injuries to drivers and passengers. It was a huge problem. The image of those injuries combined with the memory of his surprisingly resilient dropped flask sparked an idea. What if he could intentionally create this kind of unshatterable glass? He began experimenting, sandwiching a layer of cellulose nitrate between two sheets of glass. After some trial and error, he perfected the process and created what we now know as laminated safety glass. He patented his invention in 1909, calling it triplex. Initially, the automotive industry was slow to adopt triplex glass. It was more expensive than regular glass, and car manufacturers were hesitant. Safety? Puffed, people just need to drive more carefully. Probably. However, the outbreak of World War I changed things. The increased need for durable windshields in military vehicles and gas masks, which needed to protect soldiers' eyes, created a demand for Benedictus's invention. After the war, its use gradually spread to civilian automobiles, and eventually, safety glass became a standard, life-saving feature in cars, buses, and trains worldwide. It's also used in architectural glass, display cases, and safety goggles. All because a chemist was a little bit clumsy in his lab one day and then connected that accident to a real-world problem. It's a brilliant example of how a seemingly minor mishap, when observed by a prepared and thoughtful mind, can lead to innovations that protect millions of lives. So here's to happy little accidents in the lab. Alright, for our final accidental marvel, we're diving into a story that's truly close to the heart, literally. We're talking about the implantable pacemaker, a device that has given a new lease on life to millions. And its invention? You guessed it. A tiny mistake with a massive, life-saving outcome, thanks to an engineer named Wilson Greatbatch. It's the 1950s, and Wilson Greatbatch is an assistant professor of electrical engineering at the University of Buffalo. He was working on building an oscillator, a device to record fast heart sounds. He was tinkering in his workshop, a converted barn, surrounded by wires, resistors, transistors, all the fun stuff for an electronics geek. He was trying to assemble a specific circuit. One day in 1956, he reached into his box of components for a resistor. He needed a 10,000 ohm resistor for the circuit he was building. But in a moment of either haste or perhaps just misreading the label, we've all been there, grabbing the wrong spice from the rack, he accidentally pulled out a 1 mega ohm resistor instead. That's a resistor 100 times stronger than what he intended to use. A pretty big difference in the world of electronics. He soldered the wrong resistor into his circuit, not realizing his mistake. He turned the device on, expecting to hear the kind of signal he was aiming for. But instead of what he expected, the circuit started to produce a very distinct, very regular electrical pulse. It went once every 1.8 milliseconds, and then it would pause for a second, and then again. Greatbatch recognized that rhythmic pulse immediately. It sounded just like a human heartbeat, a healthy, steady heartbeat. That was his eureka moment. He realized that this circuit, created by mistake with the wrong component, wasn't good for recording heart sounds, but it might be perfect for them. It could potentially be used to stimulate a heart that wasn't beating correctly. He spent the next 2 years refining his design in secret, working tirelessly in his barn workshop. He made it smaller, more reliable, and figured out how to encase it in epoxy resin to protect it from bodily fluids. He knew he was onto something huge. The idea of an implantable device that could take over the pacing of a failing heart was revolutionary. Previous pacemakers were bulky external machines. In 1958, he showed his prototype to Dr. William Chardak, a surgeon at Buffalo's Veterans Administration Hospital. Dr. Chardak was impressed and agreed to test it. After successful animal trials, the world's first successful implant of Greatbatch's internal pacemaker into a human patient took place in 1960. The patient, a 77-year-old man, lived for another 18 months with the device. It was a monumental breakthrough. Wilson Greatbatch's accidental discovery, that one wrong resistor, literally changed the course of cardiac medicine. His invention has been refined and improved over the decades, but the core principle born from that mistake remains. Millions of people around the world live longer, healthier lives because of the implantable pacemaker. He went on to receive over 325 patents, but the pacemaker was undoubtedly his most impactful oops. It's a powerful story about how a small error in the hands of someone observant and innovative can lead to something truly life-altering. Wow, what a journey, right? From life-saving penicillin found in a forgotten dish, to post-it notes born from a failed glue, to X-rays that let us see the invisible, all the way to a candy bar melting its way to microwave ovens, and a wrong resistor beating out the rhythm for pacemakers. It's just incredible how many world-changing innovations started not with a grand plan, but with a simple oops, a surprise, or a moment of pure luck combined with a keen eye. These stories really highlight something amazing about innovation. It's not always a straight line. Sometimes the most groundbreaking discoveries are hiding in the mistakes, the unexpected detours, and the willingness to say, that's weird, I wonder why. Being open to those unforeseen outcomes, being curious about the anomalies, that's where the magic can happen. It's about recognizing potential where others might just see a mess or a failure. These accidental inventors weren't necessarily trying to change the world, but by embracing the unexpected, they did just that. So, what's your favorite accidental discovery we talked about today? Or maybe there's another one you know that blows your mind. Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And hey, if you like this trip down Serendipity Lane, you should definitely check out our other video over here on inventions inspired by nature, or maybe the craziest failed inventions. Thanks for hanging out with me, and remember, sometimes the best plans are the ones you never made. See you next time.